Hey, thanks for checking out The Solid Verbal. Now would be a great time to subscribe to the channel for college football content all off season long.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrandt, that fine gentleman over there, the one, the only, always, the incomparable Dan Rubenstein. Sir, how you doing today?
I'm good. I finally got the donut. It was delayed for my half birthday. The wife remembered 6 days, 7 days, 8 days too late. So I'm here to tell you that this specific show is powered by an old-fashioned donut. Like, not just like me saying, hey, it's a good old-fashioned donut. Like, it's literally the old-fashioned donut with the craggly edges.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect American food, or wherever it came from. It's an absolute perfect food. So I have sugar and oil and dough coursing through my veins, racing through my veins. And I'm ready to talk, news, SEC football? I'm ready.
A little bit of both, yeah. As the donut courses through your veins, what a better way to kick things off than talking about SEC football and news and all things going on in and around the world of college football. Thank you for downloading, for listening, for supporting us out at verballers.com. Go there now. Check out what our off-season benefits look like. We've got all sorts of fun stuff cooking up in the lab. Discord, as always, pretty active during the NFL games.
Oh, love it.
This weekend, as we've got the Eagles and Chiefs moving on to Super Bowl 57. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that later on in the show or as we get closer.
Really? I'm fully unprepared to talk about Eagles
This is
Chiefs.
a college show, Dan. This is
Okay.
a college show. So on today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the news since we last talked news here on the show. And then we're going to go through the seven, count them, seven. I've got 7 fingers up. 7 biggest game changers from this past season of SEC conference football. Is that right?
That's right. That's absolutely correct. I don't know what that means. I guess we can figure out the definition together on the fly. But yeah, because it's still, still January as we record this. So technically we're still very much in the shadow of the 2022 season, and a lot happened all over the place. And so we're going to take a little bit of time to make sense of it and celebrate certain aspects of the season, and breaking it down by conference seems to make sense. So I'm very excited to go through these.
I am excited as well. SEC football was not without its share of game changers. But before we get there, Dan,
Please.
So it's the off season, not a lot of breaking news,
No.
but Josh Gaddis is out as offensive coordinator at Miami. I don't know if that comes as a huge surprise. The offense never really came together in year one for Mario Cristobal, but it does represent pretty significant fall from grace, or at least momentary descent from grace, let's say, for Josh Gaddis, who was the Broyles Award winner in 2021 when he was offensive coordinator at Michigan. Took the gig at Miami to much acclaim. It did not work out. I suspect Gaddis will land on his feet, but suffice to say, the results weren't there in year one at Miami, and they are going to be looking in a different direction. Some of the names that have come up related to that job, right? Just given proximity to Mario Cristobal, are your boy Andy. No, I almost said Andy Avalos.
Andy Ludwig. That's okay.
Andy Ludwig. We've also got Marcus Arroyo, with whom there was a relationship between Cristobal and Arroyo. We've also got Joe Brady, who just seemingly comes up in accordance with all of these OC positions.
Is a local. And supposedly had a conversation with Cristobal last year. Yeah.
It is a local. The other name that I saw, Dan, James Coley, with whom Mario Cristobal worked when they were at FIU. So a collection of guys that maybe fit for different reasons. I don't know if any of those names jump out to you, but those at least are the 4 that I've seen.
Yeah, James Coley, of course, had his own stint at Miami. I think it was 2013 to 2015. I think is known to be, because of his background in Florida, supposed to be an incredible recruiter. Obviously, has had time on a number of stabs. I love stabs. Coach with Jimbo Fisher at Florida State and now at A&M. And I don't think he's seen as a top flight coordinator type at this moment. Also, Mario Cristobal interviewed Kendall Briles, who's now at TCU, Jason Candle, the head coach at Toledo, who he spoke with before about the opening. Potentially, there was some smoke there, and now I guess it wouldn't be a totally unheard of move with Sean Lewis of Kent State, head coach, taking the offensive coordinator job at Colorado. So making that kind of move seems very much on trend right now in the sport. I think what it is right now with Miami, it's a program and it's a roster on offense that very much needs to get healthy from where they were. They hit the portal somewhat for offensive linemen. They have the best duo of offensive tackles coming in this incoming recruiting class. And it's a vision thing. It's absolutely a vision thing. Colby Young is a receiver of the future. They got some good games out of Henry Parrish and Jalen Knighton, but it was quarterback health with Tyler Van Dyke going down. It was quarterback inconsistency with Jake Garcia, who's now, I believe, at Mizzou.
Yep.
Jakari Brown, the quarterback of the future, still very much raw. And so it's somebody coming in the way that I'm sure they hope Josh Gaddis would, and say, here is the vision, here are the route trees, here are our blocking schemes, here is, our identity, and here is what we're going to do as an offense. And certainly Tyler Van Dyke's injury set everything backwards pretty quickly. But I really do think it's, Mario Cristobal has that reputation of micromanaging, for better or worse. And if it's Andy Ludwig, whoever it is that comes in, you would hope, as a Miami fan, is given pretty much complete autonomy to sort of put that vision forward. It's not a huge class in terms of running backs and receivers coming in right now for Miami, but it's certainly an opportunity. There are certainly pieces there. The defense should put the offense in a decent enough place. The defensive line seems very promising. So I'm still a believer that this is a very good job, with the asterisk of Mario Cristobal's, his fingerprints on Mario Cristobal teams and their offenses.
Yeah, the thing that I couldn't get over, and I understand that it was a season for Miami filled with caveats on the offensive side of the ball, right? Not the least of which was the fact that it was year one in a new system for a lot of these guys. So I get that. I will never get used to seeing a Miami team that is 127th in ISO PPP or 128th in marginal explosiveness. These advanced metrics that we look at, courtesy of our friend Bill Connolly, that give us some indication of how explosive a team is or isn't, right? We see the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. We reference it often, but on the offensive side of the ball, just with the athleticism that I think we are all used to seeing on Miami's offense, to not have that this year was a huge letdown, especially as Cristobal came in with big name coaching hires, with all of this recruiting acclaim, to see the offense fall off the way that it did. Again, not without caveats, but that was very disappointing. Hopefully the next guy, whoever it is, can step in and get better results on that front.
Yeah, I think the floor is going to be raised significantly, whoever the new guy is, just because this should be an offensive line that continues to get better, and we have sort of seen the identity of Mario Cristobal offensive teams, but it's going to be what you mentioned, right? Yeah. It's going to be the ability to generate explosive plays, to take chances downfield, to get creative and find mismatches on offense, and, a buy-in not just from the coaching staff, but a buy-in from the roster. Receivers blocking, running backs staying into block, running backs not, sulking on the sideline, right? So that's going to be the big deal, because there's always going to be speed in the state of Florida and in the Miami area. It's just going to be a matter of everybody getting on the same page. And by the way, did also notice Josh Gaddis, the last 3 teams he's been an offensive coordinator for, all have offensive coordinator openings at the moment. Yeah. Miami, Michigan, who let Matt Weiss go in the light of computer access crimes.
Yeah. Don't know what that means, but
now Michigan already has a co-offensive coordinator on the staff, and Sharon Moore, the offensive line coach as well. So I'm not sure if he's just going to become the full guy, but there's an opening, it seems, on the offensive side of things at Michigan and Alabama, of course, with Bill O'Brien moving on and going to the New England Patriots. There's an opening there for offensive coordinator with, a couple of interesting names. Jeff Lebby's name came up with his recent success in the SEC, and I suppose he's almost an SEC coordinator once again when Oklahoma makes that move. But yeah, openings that, are pretty high profile, with signing day, official signing day, even though it's kind of now the unofficial signing day.
That's right.
Happening in a couple days from when we're recording this.
Yeah, and as of about a week ago, they've since filled the position, but his old job as receivers coach for Penn State was open as well.
Yes.
After they got rid of Taylor Stubblefield. So we'll see where Gaddis goes. We'll see what Cristobal ends up doing at offensive coordinator for Miami. Some other quick tidbits here in and around the world of college football, things that we didn't have a chance to discuss. Josh Heupel now been extended. Going to make about $9 million per season, extended through 2029. No great surprise there. Huge season for Tennessee in a variety of different ways. We'll get into it a little bit here as we talk through the content of the full episode here. But no surprise that they'd want to keep Josh Heupel around. I saw that Michigan Stadium, they're going to remove some seats and expand their tunnels following a safety review, Dan.
Probably the right move.
Probably the right move.
Like the annual tradition of things going awry in the Michigan tunnel. Yeah.
That is correct. Another thing, I'm not saying this to make light of anything, but Stetson Bennett in the news for the wrong reasons, picked up for public intoxication in Texas in the Dallas area. He is down there, I guess, getting prep for the NFL draft or for the scouting combine, draft-related activities. Definitely not the kind of news that you want going into any kind of draft cycle. We wish him well. We hope everybody is okay. Beyond that, Dan, I saw the Harbaugh stuff, which is continuing to be weird, despite the fact that he said, no, I'm here. The president came out. Santa Ono said Jim Harbaugh is here to stay. Everybody's very excited. There were reports over the weekend that, in fact, there was an in-person interview with Denver ownership. No deal had been struck. Who knows if one will be struck between Harbaugh and the Broncos, really any NFL team for that matter. But despite the words of solemn support for the Maize and Blue, Jim Harbaugh apparently still on the market as an NFL prospect. We shall see if that goes anywhere.
I guess. I mean, it was sort of said that like he made clear or something that he was going to be the Michigan coach, but still took the meeting in person.
Very weird. It's very weird.
There were reports that he's not speaking with the athletic director.
I have heard those as well.
Maybe that's normal.
Yep.
Ty, it's entirely possible that head coaches at hugely successful and very much spotlighted college football programs, maybe those head coaches don't speak to the athletic directors at said school. Maybe that's normal. You know, I don't have a list of their texts and emails and correspondences, but it does appear that Ward Manuel and Jim Harbaugh have not spoken since May. It is January 30th. So that's why we are learning of the new Michigan's president's name, Santa Ono, because he has been the administrative mouthpiece of whatever is happening behind the scenes at Michigan.
That's all we have for news, unless there's anything else from you, Dan.
No, I think I'm good. We're seeing transfers all over. I don't know if you have like A.D. Mitchell to Texas thoughts or anything.
No,
but
I mean, it's a good hire. Good hire.
Or good hire. I mean, it's a good move. I mean, it seems maybe.
I feel like I'm using transferring and hiring synonymously in this world of NIL.
Sure.
Right. So I just kind of catch myself saying it time and again. But yeah, A.D. Mitchell to Texas is an interesting move.
I think he has a young child in the state of Texas.
Young child in the state of Texas. So moving back to maybe be closer.
Yep.
You know, the Texas passing game is definitely something that I think is attractive. If you're a receiver, if you've got Quinn Ewers, hopefully Quinn Ewers takes another step forward. I understand that move. We will have a lot more on not just the portal, but on the recruiting beat here over the course of the next week or so, given the fact that signing day is on Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get into it.
No way, because we got Game Genie. No problemo.
I don't know why I played that.
I was going to say, it's a tenuous connection, but I enjoyed it.
I don't know why I played it. I found that I decided I wanted to use the Game Genie thing. Top 7 SEC game changers in 2022. What is your definition of a game changer, Dan?
Something novel for the 2022 season within the SEC and an SEC program. Something that was new, something that didn't exist in that specific way for that team or for the conference in 2021. So looking back and like, okay, this changed the scope. This made this team go up or down, or that team go up or down, or this was a new wrinkle for this team, or this was a new storyline for this team or division or anything like that. Something that changed the complexion and path of the general SEC season or the program that person is associated with. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think there's a couple different ways that you can look just at that definition of game changer. It could be somebody who very broadly throughout the course of the season provided an extra bit of zazz to an offense or a defense for that matter
Loves Zaz.
We did not see coming at the start of the season. Somebody who had that season-long effect on an offense, let's say, because we're going to have a couple of those, and that definitely changed a team's fortunes. There are also some guys on our list that I think were productive in their own right, but specifically had key plays at moments this season that if they were not in the right place at the right time, the season could have gone much, much differently for an institution.
Totally agree.
So a couple different ways, the macro and the micro look at game changers in the SEC.
Yeah. Where do you want to start?
That's going to be my game changer sound, though. Breaking through the
Okay.
glass. You tell me, where are we going first?
I guess we can start at the top. I wasn't sure where to go with Georgia. It'd be easy to say, Will Muschamp and Glenn Schumann stepping in as new full-time defensive coordinators, whatever. And the defense didn't really miss that much of a beat from a historic one the year before. Or you can say Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett just continued to be very, very good at college football. I have it down here as Ladd McConkey.
Your boy.
I'll tell you why.
Your boy.
I'll tell you why Ladd, because this year's Georgia team came extremely close to losing a game against a very good team. Something that I guess they lost to Alabama the year before,
right.
But in terms of what was novel about the 2022 season for Georgia, it really was that Ohio State game that stands alone. And Ladd McConkey didn't actually make a huge statistical impact in that game. But when you look at the second half of that specific game and the path towards Georgia winning that second consecutive national title, late in the game, Ladd McConkey falls on a backwards pass, being swarmed by Ohio State players. And that if Ohio State recovers that fumble, that's probably it.
Right.
And then he breaks up a potential interception in the end zone. If Ohio State picks that ball off from Stetson Bennett, that's probably it. And then Ladd McConkey, of course, catches the 2-point conversion after the long Arian Smith touchdown to cut into the Ohio State lead, which was very much needed considering the end of that game, the extremely tight end of that game. So Ladd McConkey was very good all year long. He was used in a number of different ways in the offense, and even when he was beat up, he managed to affect the game pretty significantly when it came down to it in the playoff. And I add the caveat of Brock Bowers in that, even though Brock Bowers being excellent wasn't any different than where he was the year before. The very specific play on fourth down when he was able to stay in bounds long enough to convert the fourth down catch, which I think led to a field goal that Georgia very much needed to come back and win the Ohio State game. If we're talking about extremely thin margins, there was really only one game. Mizzou kind of counted. That I think it was 26-22, and that was a late scare. But Ohio State just happens to be scarier than Mizzou. So in terms of game changers for the 2022 Georgia team, they're all over the roster. They're absolutely all over the roster. But if we're speaking to moments, those moments to me changed, Ohio State winning that game and losing that game, and ultimately Georgia winning the national championship game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are people out there listening to this saying, how could you not answer Stetson Bennett? I would argue Stetson Bennett would be the perfect answer for the 2021 season, right? Because in 2021, the stability he provided at quarterback, his ability to overcome in a key situation on the biggest stage in college football, that was a game-changing performance the full year through for the Georgia Bulldogs. We came into this season, I think, cautiously optimistic about Stetson Bennett and what he could do this season. We got much of what we came to know and love last season, 2 seasons ago now, from this past season of Stetson Bennett at quarterback. So what we got at quarterback there was very stable, but Ladd McConkey was an interesting answer for a variety of reasons. He was second in the team throughout the course of the year. I know you're talking about very specific moments in a very big game, but outside of Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey had the second most targets in that entire receiver room. And that includes Brock Bowers. That includes a couple running backs who got in on the action, tight ends,
Kenny McIntosh,
things of that nature. Georgia's receiver room as a whole was not that deep with crazy, talented, awesome performances.
Healthy, because A.D. Mitchell missed a big chunk of that season too. Yeah,
A.D. Mitchell was out since week 2. So Ladd McConkey had to step up in a really big way and take on, I think, more of a share of those targets than anybody on the Georgia offensive side had predicted going into the year. He did so admirably. the thing that stands out to me, just to close the loop on what he did in the postseason, we talked about some of the blind items that the Athletic highlighted in the build-up, I think, to the TCU game in the championship. And so many of the SEC coaches out there were like, how's this guy even on the field on Georgia?
Playing?
How is he playing on this team? He is not big enough. He is not talented enough. He's not fast enough to be out there with this group of guys, and yet he comes through in a really big way. So kudos to him. A great season. 2 national championships now for Ladd McConkey. And if only because of those key moments, total game changer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could say Jalen Carter, of course,
Oh,
stepping
of course,
up.
of course.
That changed the game for Georgia on defense, or Chris Smith in the secondary. Of course, there's
Look,
a number of ends. I'm just looking at the very specific high leverage moments that really decided the season for Georgia.
When you are a 2-time defending national champion, you've got a lot of game changers on your roster.
Correct.
It's really just an exercise in which one do we want to pick out. So, all right. Next up,
Who do you have?
I want to talk about Jalen Hyatt.
Oh, great call.
Jalen Hyatt. So, we talk about gravitational players often on this podcast, the guys around whom the offense sort of gravitates, revolves.
Rotates. Yeah.
You need that guy in your offense if you want to pack any kind of punch. And especially in a Josh Heupel offense, which runs quick and has all sorts of explosivity built into it, you got to know what you're doing out there, and you got to have somebody who has the skill set to do it. Jalen Hyatt was certainly that type of player this season. Jalen Hyatt had 5 touchdowns and 207 yards and only 6 catches against Alabama, which is a crazy video game stat.
Yes.
Absolutely crazy. 6 catches, 207, 5 touchdowns against your biggest rival in Alabama. So it's a big deal. They won that game at home. Of course, that might have been the upset of the season, 52-49. That was very significant for the Tennessee program as a whole, not just given the season. But Jalen Hyatt, with what he did in that game, with what he did all season, really, he had close to 1,300 yards. He had 15 touchdowns, mostly out of the slot. He did a lot of his damage out of the slot. 91 targets in this offense. And again, Hendon Hooker, we could have used Hendon Hooker very easily. Hendon Hooker, before he got hurt, completed about 70% of his passes, threw for over 3,100 yards in his own right. He clearly was the engine that made this offense what it was. But bear in mind that Tennessee had some injuries out wide. Jalen Hyatt needed to step up in some of the biggest games this season, and he did so admirably. He's since declared for the NFL draft. He's going to get picked, I think, pretty highly. Given what we saw from him this season, I think it's pretty much on full display what he can bring to an NFL roster. But suffice to say that Tennessee's offense, while it still would have been very good with Hendon Hooker pulling the switches, Jalen Hyatt definitely was a game breaker who gave him a little bit of that extra pop, that zazz, as you like to say.
It was a difference. It was, Cedric Tillman and Velus Jones the year before were an outstanding duo. But Jalen Hyatt, at his best, healthy, we saw what he was capable of, especially in that mid-chunk stretch of the season, highlighted by, of course, the Alabama game you mentioned. But when you talk about gravitational players, Jalen Hyatt is that guy that, okay, Georgia needs to take him away. And Georgia did take him away. He not a perfect receiver. He didn't hit 1,000 this year. But when Jalen Hyatt wasn't able to largely get loose in some bad weather, whatever, Georgia, stomped Tennessee effectively. That Tennessee's offense took a step back. That, Hendon Hooker was not able to do what he wanted to do against Georgia because of Jalen Hyatt being taken away somewhat. And obviously the Georgia front completely demolishing Tennessee up front. Jalen Hyatt ran safeties out of plays, ran corners out of plays. Even when he's not getting the ball, the grass is greener for the Tennessee offense. The running game is easier because you have to have eyes on Jalen Hyatt on every play. Yeah. And so that was the difference. I think he had 220 yards total in 2021, and then he had 207 yards alone, as you mentioned, in that Alabama game. So I don't know how you tell the story of the 2022 SEC football season without talking about the emergence of Jalen Hyatt, because we knew Hendon Hooker was capable of bombing it down the field, and he was, when healthy, of Heisman caliber. But we kind of had that notion coming into the season that he was a quarterback nationally to watch. Jalen Hyatt was the emergence in that offense. And so that to me is why that's a really relevant pick for this.
Yeah, a burner who can run downfield. Again, this is not an NFL show. We do talk about the draft anecdotally, if only to provide context. He's easily one of the top 5 receivers in this class. He's up there with Quinton Johnston. He's up there with Jordan Addison.
Yep.
Jackson Smith and Jigba, Josh Downs, another name that
speed kills.
That another name that did some work this year for Carolina. He's in that type of discussion right now. And so great season for him, great season for Tennessee on offense. It would not have been possible, though, without Jalen Hyatt. Great season for him.
Yeah. And by the way, there are like 4.5 Jalen Hyatts in college football, which is when we use the term winter wonders, it's that, terrifying horror story of a receiver. He is one of those.
Yeah. Okay.
He just is.
Next one. Where do you want to go next?
I'm going to go Drew Sanders.
Ooh, Arkansas
linebacker, Alabama transfer. So this is sort of doubly pronged, a 2-pronged answer for me because he was the clear bright spot. Linebacker was the clear bright spot for an Arkansas defense that did not have a good year. They were beat up, obviously, Jalen Catalon early on. I mean, Barry Odom is a very good defensive coordinator, now the head coach at UNLV. But Drew Sanders, transferring in from Alabama, was all over the place. Used in a different way, moved around a lot more than he was at Alabama in different linebacker positions. I wrote this down. I think he led the team in tackles for loss, run stuffs, pressures, sacks. Like he was just Mr. Everything for a defense that needed 10 more Drew Sanders on it. And so he was all SEC first team. If he wasn't the best linebacker in the SEC, he most certainly was one of the best two or three. And I always like those guys who have to do everything sometimes when those around them are either beat up or just are not on his level. So he made a questionable decision to transfer to Arkansas given the weird year, but even still, in that defense, he shined. And actually, just in terms of changing the complexion of the SEC season, he was the one, and it was not a dirty tackle, but he was one who tackled Bryce Young, who he was actually friendly with at Alabama. That led to Bryce Young landing on his shoulder, and whatever the final injury was a sprained AC joint, whatever it was. Bryce Young was not the same after that injury for a number of weeks, including the LSU game and Tennessee game. And look, don't get me wrong. Alabama had plenty of opportunities to win either of those games, whether or not Bryce Young's shoulder was beat up, but didn't help. It didn't help. I know Alabama fans were also not, I think, huge fans of Bill O'Brien and the way that his vision for the offense rolled out. But yeah, Bryce Young was not himself for those few weeks, maybe up until the Auburn game. Certainly when you saw what he was able to do with some more time off and just demolished, flattened, destroy, obliterate, whatever verb you want to use, Kansas State in the bowl game. Not intentional from Drew Sanders, but that play, and I don't know if you've ever tried to chase down Bryce Young from behind.
I haven't. Not recently.
I personally find that I might not be capable of doing so. So that Drew Sanders was able to do so. He was a wrecking ball for Arkansas, and so I tip my cap because he was incredible.
Yeah, big kid too. He's big, 6'5", like 230. Again, not an NFL show, not a draft Nick, but
declared.
Would imagine that he would be another name. I think it's a pretty deep linebacker class from what I remember.
Okay.
Drew Sanders, I think, would get some looks. He's got really good size. He's got pretty good speed, as he said, chasing down guys from behind.
Yeah, and it's all coverage now, right? If you're a linebacker on any level, with the way that offenses are fully built around, digging out those mismatches and just finding linebackers up the seam to exploit them with a slot receiver or something like that. If Drew Sanders has the speed that translates to the NFL, he's going to make himself a lot of money.
I just wanted to provide some further context on some of the numbers that you threw out there. You're right. Everything you said is correct. 111 total tackles, 47 of which were solo. He had 16 tackles for loss, which laps the field on the Arkansas defense. Not even close. He had 10 run stuffs, which is just, I think a recognition of the fact that this is a guy who can anticipate the play very quickly. And as he said, just one of the few bright spots on the Arkansas defense. The Arkansas defense was not exactly a shutdown unit.
No.
Definitely could have used more Drew Sanders, but the fact that he was on that team, the fact that he was on that side of the ball, at least gave them a little bit more cover. He was a do-it-all guy. He was a do-it-all guy. He was kind of in the mix on every play. So I'm glad that you called him out. He's not a name that we talked a whole lot about this season, but hopefully gets his fill in the NFL and at a minimum got some airtime here on the show.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him.
Next, let's go to Mike Leach.
Let's go Mike Leach. Yeah.
Let's talk about Mike Leach. So, obviously, tragic circumstances here.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike Leach, I think, Mike Leach is an icon in the college football world. Not just given his innovation on the offensive side of the ball, but the personality, the fact that he touched college football in the ways that he did. You know, when he stepped foot in an SEC locker room, the instant reaction from us, I think, was, okay, this is interesting. This is going to be interesting to see how this offense plays at the within an SEC conference that had not seen a Mike Leach style system before, or at least not as effective. The fact that Leach came in, I think he made Mississippi State better as a whole. He certainly made Mississippi State interesting. That is beyond a shadow of a doubt. And just the impact this guy had on college football. It's hard not to list him in the game changer category in some respect.
Yeah, it's also, you look at the effect of his specific system, obviously throwing the ball to move the ball, finding grass, hitting grass, and opening things up to find mismatches. You look at just where the SEC is now as compared to where it was a decade ago, way before he entered into the conference. And you look at the stats, whatever. Obviously, Will Rogers is going to lead the SEC in pass attempts with that specific system. But you look at his coaching tree and the guys coming off of it. Josh Heupel was a national championship winning quarterback for him at Oklahoma, is now running a wide open system at Tennessee. Wasn't that long ago that Tennessee was running an I system, right? That was just, the 3 yards in a cloud of dust system. And that the SEC has evolved to where it is now, with Alabama throwing it like they are, with obviously LSU and, bringing in Jalen Daniels from the West Coast and opening things up in the way that they've continued to do so. Joe Brady really helped to start that with Steve Ensminger a couple of years ago. Yeah. But the influence of Mike Leach to where we are now with South Carolina going for an Oklahoma Lincoln Riley quarterback to come on strong late in the year, and Spencer Rattler. Huge deal. He threw 6 touchdowns in the win over Tennessee. They scored 63 points from where they were. It's not Mike Leach directly, but the influence is all over the conference in the way that teams are viewing offense, that teams are recruiting to offense, in the way that teams are calling plays, in the way that teams are taking more chances on 4th and short and just saying, screw it. We're simplifying things. We're going fast. We're going for it. And so maybe short of what Texas A&M put on the field on offense this year, you could see the tentacles of Mike Leach's offense and influence in the game all over the conference.
Yeah, and it's not just a college thing, to be honest with you.
No, of course not.
It's something that has gone up to the NFL. It's something that has gone down to the high school ranks as well. I've been going through and watching a lot of old Leach videos, old Hal Mummy videos where they talk about how the offense runs and what some of the guiding principles are. And what I think is so fascinating about the style of system that both these guys ran, helped develop together in their time as coaches, the simplicity of it.
Yes.
The simplicity of it. The only way you can make something go that quick is if it's simple, is if it requires a couple of hand motions in order to communicate everything that the offense needs to do in order to run the play. And so that's part of why I think it's so fascinating that it has been crazy effective on a number of different levels, both high school, college, and pro. And so much of it is communicated through hand signals and very simple concepts that almost anybody could understand. The fact that they've taken it this far and innovated to this point is pretty cool. That's an amazing story. And that's a credit to Leach and all the time he put in helping to drive it forward.
Even Georgia, which is not necessarily the team that is keen on throwing the ball 45 times a game. You look at Todd Monken and his path, obviously subbing in for Dana Holgorsen at Oklahoma State with his own experience in the broader air raid system, and the fact that Stetson Bennett non-prototypically sized quarterback, non-NFL future of any real consequence, it seems, is able to get the ball out, is able to make plays quickly, is able to have a place in the sport, even if he's undersized, because of that ability to just quickly read and make plays, extend plays, whatever. That's an influence. It's more indirect. It is more tenuous. But the fact is, there are elements in all of these teams that we've seen in the SEC that are spilling through.
Got to pay homage to Leach. Just have
pay homage.
Let's go.
Yep.
Let's talk about Jalen Daniels, Dan.
Please.
Maybe the most obvious name on our top 7 list. How many are we up to now? 5?
That sounds right.
I think we're on number 5. Jalen Daniels. So look, I made the joke before the start of the season that Brian Kelly, he was going to screw up this quarterback thing at LSU. There were a bunch of names, right? It wasn't just Jalen Daniels, but you could have thrown Walker Howard in there. You could have thrown Garrett Nussmeier in there. We didn't know who the quarterback was going to be. There was all sorts of speculation before the start of the year. My joke was he's going to do at LSU what he did at Notre Dame. He's going to screw it up. He's going to commit to all of them, not just one of them. The whole thing's going to go south. Well, Jalen Daniels wins the job. Jalen Daniels had a little bit of a rocky go early, but after that was downright electric. I was wrong. I was wrong on Brian Kelly. I was wrong on Jalen Daniels. Jalen Daniels meant the world to this team. Not only was he very good and very responsible when it came to the passing game, only threw 3 picks all season long, but also the team's leading rusher. I was
going to say, he had to do everything.
Had almost 900 yards. He had 10 touchdowns on the ground. So after he kind of settled in, after he got in rhythm with the rest of that offense, we are where we are now. LSU had an incredible first season under Brian Kelly. They beat Alabama, which in and of itself is a big deal for this team that was trying to reorganize itself after Ed Orgeron. And now we're talking about Jalen Daniels coming back into this season. We're talking about Walker Howard, the once promising recruit who did the weird 360 podium dance thing with Brian Kelly. He's off to Ole Miss now because he doesn't want to wait another year. He knows
Miles Brennan retired.
Retired.
Daniels won the job.
I forgot all about Miles Brennan.
Yeah.
So that is what Jalen Daniels did for this program. He re-energized the offense. He definitely gave them an X factor that was not there before he transferred over from Arizona State. He instantly made LSU all that much more dangerous. And so we can't, in good faith, talk about a list of SEC game changers without mentioning Jalen Daniels. The guy had an incredible season.
Yeah, also the way that LSU started this season, if you remember, the Florida State loss.
Yep.
The fact that he was a stabling influence. Malik Neighbors ended up having a great year after a couple of not great moments in that opening game. I think he was maybe the second leading receiver in the SEC after Jalen Hyatt. So, yeah, LSU able to sort of gather itself relatively quickly because Jalen Daniels is older and a stabilizing force once again.
Yeah.
And the do-everything guy to make that throw at the end of the Bama game and break through. It's a different look roster for LSU, having to rely on transfers in more places than usual. So, yeah, absolutely. Jalen Daniels, a game changer for LSU. Now, what's it going to look like next year? Because Garrett Nussmeier is kind of coming on strong.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me. It's Jalen Daniels' job, but it's interesting. It is interesting to me. I don't know.
It's a good problem to have.
Sure.
If you're an LSU fan, knowing that you've got 2 capable quarterbacks who can play. Walker Howard, it was too much for him. Walker Howard's like, I'm going to go somewhere else where there's 2 quarterbacks. But alas, LSU having the kind of season it did, winning the West, going to the SEC title game, destroying, was it Purdue? They played in the bowl game? Yeah, Purdue in the bowl game, just hammered Purdue. We all saw that one coming. But a really nice 10-4 season, 10-win season for Brian Kelly in year 1. I think definitely exceeded expectations, and they are not at this moment right now without Jalen Daniels. He totally changed the game, not just for LSU, but really changed the complexion of the SEC West.
Yeah, and Brian Kelly did every single bit to earn every dollar of his paycheck to such an extent that they paid him an extra $1 million accidentally.
Yeah, I wrote about that in the newsletter. It's incredible. And you know, as I wrote, like, I would love to believe, as a scorned Notre Dame fan, that there was some sort of nefarious Office Space style plot,
Sure.
Through which he siphoned $1 million off without anybody knowing it. But it was legalese. It was complications in his contract with how he wanted to be paid. It was, I don't know how you don't notice that. Maybe that's a different conversation. But they've
Who among us?
They've now taken corrective action.
Yeah, who among us, when we're doing our taxes at the end of the year, find a clean extra mil? Like, how? Huh?
I talked to Mama H about this.
We've all been there.
And I was like, there is definitely a difference between rich and Brian Kelly rich. You're Brian Kelly rich if you don't notice 7 extra figures in the bank account.
Well, here's a quick little accounting whodunit.
Jane Dan.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Absolutely.
Where do you want to go next?
I think we only have one more, right?
I will count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we got 2 more. 2 more.
We got 2 more. Okay, I'm going Quinshon Judkins.
Oh, this is your boy. You liked him.
I really like Quinshon Judkins because, I don't know, I like good football players, and he happens to be one of them. Freshman running back who was expected to maybe be a spell for Zach Evans, the former 5-star running back, or 5-star recruit who transferred in from TCU, and they looked to be like a really brutal 1-2 for the SEC, and it turns out he was just the brutal one. He was the guy. I think he had 5 games of 25-plus carries, another 3 or 4 over 20 carries.
No.
And all throughout the year, he was the guy because Jackson Dart was not the next Matt Corral.
No.
The offense, while very good, and Jonathan Mingo was certainly a huge play receiver, it was an offense that had Quinshon Judkins, and that was kind of it. And that was good enough to almost or fully win a number of games. Now, Ole Miss's season took a turn right about the time that they took a lead on LSU. They're up, 17-3 or 20-3 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I always admire somebody who has that kind of resilience and that kind of game and that kind of ability to, literally put the team on his back. It seemed at times as he was pulling guys forward. So I came away, very, very impressed for a freshman to be able to do that in the SEC. And he's similar, Devin A-Chain and what he was able to do at Texas A&M. That was a higher degree of difficulty considering the limitations of Texas A&M's offense. And I think he ran the ball damn near 40 times against LSU to win that game to finish the year. Scored, was it 37, 38 points, something like that for Texas A&M. But yeah, Quinshon Judkins to come in and make that kind of impact, that's different.
1,500 yards.
New.
1,567 yards and 16 touchdowns for a freshman.
Yeah.
For a freshman. And there are stories out there about how Lane Kiffin wanted this kid and, was doing what it took to get him on campus. And
there's a great picture of Lane Kiffin freezing his ass off in the bleachers of Quinshon Judkins' a game during his senior year, and it was just Lane Kiffin sitting there alone, like, that's my guy.
That's his guy.
That's the dude I want in Oxford. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's good he got him because, as he said, the offense doesn't purr the way it purred without Quinshon Judkins. Zach Evans had a good season. Obviously, Jackson, we can talk about Jackson Dart at some other point in time, but Quinshon Judkins was a huge deal. Huge game changer for the Ole Miss offense.
Yeah.
One more.
Please.
I want to talk about my boy Shane Beamer.
Okay, you're going with Beamer. I gave you an alt here if you wanted to use it, but go Beamer. I think that's
you were trying to give me Jaheim Bell, who I like Jaheim Bell. All right, I like Jaheim Bell, but I can't get over, for the life of me, the job that Shane Beamer has done in 2 years at South Carolina. I can't get over it. I remember when he took that job. And we looked at South Carolina before the 21 season. You and I looked at each other and we literally shrugged. Like, there's no chance. They have no chance. They were decimated on the lines. There was a dearth of talent, and they won 7 games. Now, I'm not going to act like it wasn't at least some pixie dust and some smoke and mirrors, but they went to a bowl game. They won the Duke's Mayo Bowl. He had the vat of mayo dumped on him after his first season. That was a pretty successful campaign by any measure. For a first-year coach. But then to win one more game this past season, to beat Tennessee nicked up, but to beat Tennessee, still beat them, still a good team, to beat Clemson to close out the season, I can't help but come away feeling like Shane Beamer is very much a coach with a ton of juice and so much more left to prove in the SEC. I was just so damn impressed by the way they fought. That's the one thing that we're seeing with this team time and again. South Carolina now, 2 years now under Shane Beamer. They always fight. They always fight. Now, there are going to be some losses like the one at Florida where they lost by 32 points. You're going to have a couple of those. While they're trying to build up this roster of talent, you're going to have a couple like that. But the fact that in some of the biggest games, most of the biggest games, South Carolina plays up to its competition and not down to whatever expectations we had, that is telling of a good coach. There are also, I think, some key indicators that the thing is getting better. Took a bit of a step back on defense. Okay, need to get that sorted. But the offense dramatically improved this season. Brought over Spencer Rattler, had some other transfers that came in to help bolster that. They've gotten a lot better on special teams. We know Shane Beamer's pedigree as a special teams coach. Maybe that's no surprise. But again, these are things that we look at on the special teams side. That is a measure of effort. That is a measure of caring, right? That tells you how motivated a team is or can be. Of course. And the fact that they are now, again, by some metrics, the top special teams unit in all of college football is telling to me that things are moving in a very good direction, that there is a lot of momentum on this Beamer era in Columbia, South Carolina. So I am impressed by him. They almost won the bowl game against Notre Dame. Probably could have won that bowl game.
Sure.
The Gator Bowl, right? So the fact that it still feels like we are on the rise here with Shane Beamer through 2 years, it was always going to be a longer term deal to get South Carolina back to where they want it to be. But I think it still remains very, very promising. And by the way, if they're winning that kind of game, if they're beating the likes of a Tennessee in the SEC East, it is a game changer. It is a game changer. It provides a little bit more balance on that side of the force, right? Because we talk about the SEC West and how loaded the SEC West was. We were waiting for some other schools to rise up in the East and provide perhaps some more competition for the likes of Georgia. Well, Tennessee, who knows about South Carolina? They'll give you a game. Didn't necessarily give Georgia a game this year, lost by 41 points, but
yeah, that'll happen. Sure.
That'll happen. You'll have that. So I just remain very impressed with Shane Beamer, and I can't help but think this guy is a huge game changer on that side of the conference.
Yeah, it's starting the season's a little bit better. It's not looking flat randomly, and I think that'll come with time. That'll come with experience of its roster. I don't know, they got kind of blown out. It was a low point right before a high point when they lost to Florida, but then finished the season strong immediately thereafter, beating Clemson and Tennessee to finish things out. Look, it's a tough job just because it's not a headliner in the way that three other programs in their own division are typically in Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia. They're not the team in their own state with Clemson, who they just beat, by the way, so that's nice. But they're sort of existing amongst. And so for South Carolina and its players, now Jaheim Bell transfers, Marshawn Lloyd transfers, Spencer Rattler announces coming back. It's that next step on the trail. It's that next step finding NFL caliber guys on both sides of the ball, like they've done in recent years, but continuing to do so and continuing to build depth because it is extremely tough to stand out in that division, in that conference. And for South Carolina to finish the way that they did, it's a crazy good job. Yeah, I had Jaheim Bell there because I love weirdo tight ends who run the ball as, converted H-back types, and he's off to Florida State now. But there are those types of players more and more, those combination type game changers that South Carolina is going to find, that they're going to unearth. And Shane Beamer is a great example of a program hiring a guy moving up in the profession, in that world. And so when you juxtapose him against some sort of, the also ran hires that a team is hiring, Will Muschamp, like South Carolina, like Florida, whatever, that is hiring or keeping Kirk Ferentz or whatever, the energy of Shane Beamer in that program, it's making more and more sense as the hire long term.
It was a risk. It was definitely a risk.
It was a risk in its own way.
It was a risk
but I appreciate swings. You know that. We're a show about swings, and it was a swing.
It absolutely was. He's still a young guy. He's only 45. They gave him the job. He didn't have any head coaching experience. Was obviously in close proximity to his father, who was a longtime iconic football coach at Virginia Tech, but came over as a special teams coach. And we've seen that happen elsewhere. The special teams coach is the one that pops, right? I mean, there are plenty of examples of that.
Sure.
So to see what he's done, the energy that he has brought to that program has been pretty cool. So Shane Beamer,
But-
I think, is my final game changer here in the SEC.
That's a good answer. The only other thing I'd say about Shane Beamer is, unfortunately for South Carolina fans, if South Carolina keeps improving, his name is going to keep coming up November, December, January I saw his name. I don't know if it was Tom Fornelli. I apologize if I got that wrong. But like, if Jim Harbaugh were to take a job in the NFL and Michigan were going to begin a search,
Wow.
a winning, young, energetic coach in the SEC at a non-headline place is somebody who will have their name come up for huge jobs like that.
Wow.
Right? If he wins 9 games at South Carolina, if they go 9-3 in the next couple of years, I don't know how long he's in Columbia. That's all.
A topic for another day. For
Yeah,
another day.
That's it.
There you have it. Let us know via email, via the comments, via whatever tools you have available. Who did we miss? Who did we overvalue? Who did we undervalue?
Sure.
solidverbal@gmail.com. You can always reach out on social media or on YouTube. We'll post clips out on YouTube where you can watch. You can react as well. Let us know your thoughts on this season of SEC football. Good season. Always a good season of SEC football.
Sure.
Georgia won the national championship, so kind of hard to be better than that. But yeah, let us know.
How about Clark Lee?
I
5
thought
and 7
about Clark
Vandy?
Lee. I thought about Clark Lee.
Anthony Orji?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
That was a defense at time. They stayed within 56 at the end of the season of Tennessee. No, I mean, look, they beat Kentucky and Florida. They go 5 and 7 on the precipice of a bowl in Clark Lee's second year. It's pretty good, right?
Next year's answer could be Liam Cohen for Kentucky.
Sure.
Liam Cohen, Devin Leary. That tandem will be interesting to watch. We'll see if he can do for Leary what he did for Levis.
Mm-hmm.
But he's an interesting name. There are a bunch of interesting names always coming into the SEC conference. So we will do this again next year. And I think we're going to go through other conferences as well.
Great.
Daniel, enjoy the rest of your day.
I will. How about you, Ty? Are you going to enjoy the rest of your day?
I'm going to do my best. I would enjoy it more if folks would go on out to verballers.com and check out our Patreon. That's where you can go and get access to bonus stuff, early access to our episodes. Obviously, not the least of which is support Dan and I as we continue to drop podcasts all throughout the college football offseason. We'll be here all offseason, we promise.
Subscribe and listen to Extra Nuggets, our other big show here.
Did you get up to like
Verbal.
the 35th
pretty good.
most popular comedy podcast? We're listed as a comedy podcast.
Yeah, however that's calculated.
On Apple and iTunes, yeah.
We're growing and growing and growing. It's a lot of fun. It's the show I do with Adam Amin about just random Jeopardy categories. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/the Solid Verbal.
Or just an at Solid Verbal now. They changed it.
Oh, you can do just
do
at
both.
Solid Verbal?
You can do both, yeah. But we also added at Solid Verbal as well.
Yeah, look it up. Ty's looking more handsome than ever.
Thank
So
you,
I
Dan.
recommend it.
Thank you. I got a little more salt and pepper in the beard than I really want to show.
You look distinguished. You look distinguished.
Publicly, but, we are who we are.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, one and all, for downloading, listening, supporting the show. As always, we'll be back in a few days. Talk to you all again soon. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.